Hi everyone, welcome back to John's Briefs here at C2 Tactical in Scottsdale. Thanks to them for giving us the space here today. Come shoot here. This is a great place to shoot with defense attorney extraordinaire Tim Forshey of Forshey Law. Guy did my NFA trust, should do yours as well, especially now with how fast suppressors are coming back.
Wow, I mean, it's time to do it.
Days.
Yeah.
My first batch of suppressors, the only one I've ever done, took 9 months.
Yeah.
Now they're like 3 days.
I had a client that got one in 2 days the other day.
2 days,
Yep.
wow.
It's amazing. So jump while the iron's hot.
And having an NFA trust makes that way easier.
Makes it easier. It also gives you all the protection for your family
spouse,
members and when you pass away, what it does to your family if you don't have it. So it's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Really is.
So we had a stabbing and then a shooting on the channel out of the New York City subway. Remember the first rule of life, try your best not to ever be on the New York City subway. But in the midst of that, these two guys are having a go, and the one pins the other down, and the one who is pinned on the ground, his girlfriend, stabs the guy who's got him with a knife. And
really close to the spine, it looked like.
Yeah, pretty close.
Very close.
And so I got taken to task a little bit in the comments because I said, that's kind of sketchy because she ran off. But let's ask the attorney about it. Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, I will also be on your team as a consulting expert, and you can attend our monthly active self-protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below. So, I mean, first of all, crazy event.
Yeah, again, I've ridden the New York City subway a few times. You know, we go out about every 3 years, my wife makes us all go to New York City for about 4 days, and we spend about $700,000 on Broadway tickets, and we just do show after show after show, because we love the theater. I was in musical theater. And, you know, we ride the subway. But, I mean, you hear all these stories about the subway, and holy cow, does this one graphically demonstrate that they're not fictional?
And I did find out, by the way, one of my pieces of advice was to try to get off that subway car. Yeah. But apparently when it's in motion, those are locked.
Yeah,
and so you cannot get off it in any capacity. You are stuck in there. Okay, well, that changes the calculus just a little bit. But so obviously, these two men decide they're going to have a fight, right?
And they're literally squaring off. And it was, at first I thought it was going to be kind of comical. It turned out not comical at all.
Not comical at all.
Nope.
Not even remotely. And a big to-do there. Again, some guy wants to fight me. I've got plenty of empty-handed skills training, but I ain't going to do it. So this is why I carry an OC spray. Even in New York City, you can carry an OC spray. Can't get it shipped into New York City, but you can buy one elsewhere and have it, you know, and have it on your person in New York City. I know there's lots of sensitive areas, and I'm not telling you in New York City what to do on that, okay? But I'd have hosed him with the hot sauce. Just, dude, get away from me, man. I don't want to fight you. But I want to ask you, so in the midst of that, they're fighting, and the bigger guy, the guy who ends up pulling a gun and shooting, has the other guy down, and the guy who's on the bottom, his girlfriend comes and stabs him in the back. And I said, man, that's, because especially she ran off, she didn't make a statement, they apparently are still, she went into the wind.
I was going to say, supposedly they haven't apprehended her yet, right? Yeah.
Supposedly,
do they know her identity? Is her boyfriend just not telling him? Or
I don't know that.
So,
don't have details.
So maybe she gets away with it. We'll see.
But what did you think of that when you saw it?
Well, again, can you use lethal force to intervene on behalf of a third party? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Provided that you're reasonably in fear for the imminent loss of that person's life. I wasn't there. The guy was clearly big. He had to be drunk, mentally ill, high, or all three, right? Just because of the way he was conducting himself. And he kept saying the same threat over and over for the first 2 minutes of the video, right? So he's almost chanting to himself. So the guy's got some issues, right? Now, does that mean he's not an incredibly lethal fighter? I mean, I saw him throw a couple of pretty good haymakers that connected, right? The guy he's fighting was quite a bit smaller. Clearly, he had the upper hand. Now, am I afraid that he's about to kill or seriously maim my boyfriend? Or am I just mad?
Right.
If I'm just mad and I go up and put a shit between this guy's ribs, that's aggravated assault, attempted murder. If I'm in fear for my boyfriend's life legitimately, it's probably legal lethal force on behalf of a third party. Now, again, I think that's going to hinge on how bad was the guy hurt, how bad did she think he was hurt, how bad did she reasonably think he would be hurt.
He's got him down, so you're like, okay, he's got him on the ground. He could really hurt him when he's on the ground because, you know, especially his head's on the ground, and so you can pound him bigger.
That's right. Bigger. You know, people don't realize, but you can fracture a skull way easier than you think, cause a serious concussion way easier than you think. Yeah, so those are all concerns.
Of course, the question then becomes what is in her mind in that. I could say, well, here's some objective evidence that maybe you could think that he was at risk, but did she actually think he was at risk?
And the fact that she left tends to indicate that she doesn't think that she can support her decision, or she would have stayed there and given a statement and took the medicine.
And I understand.
And people panic. I mean,
people panic. People don't trust cops.
And, you know, I mean, and she's in New York City where maybe you don't think you ever get a fair shake, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not in her shoes. Maybe I would flake too, but she did flake. So.
And that's it. And I understand why somebody, especially somebody who's, black or Hispanic might go, I don't trust the cops and I don't want to interact with the cops because they always jam up my family and they never believe me or those things. I don't necessarily always agree with that statement, but I understand why people would would embrace that narrative.
I haven't lived their life, and I can't really comment on that. So
generational stuff, I can make all kinds of controversial statements, but whatever. But the fact of the matter is, the system is going to look at that as you skipped, and we don't generally expect good people to skip town.
It's like we always say: the first person to call the cops is victim one, the second person suspect one. If you just take off. Doesn't paint a good picture.
Well, and frankly, that can turn what we might have seen as justified conduct into what we will perceive as unjustified conduct because of the after effects, right? That says, no, you had the depraved mind.
A guilty person flees.
A guilty person flees. A guilty person doesn't call 911. I mean, I had a case in New Mexico. We beat this point to the jury till the day is done. That the defendant, who I was the expert for the defense, was on the phone with 911 during the use of deadly force. The people that he used deadly force against never called 911, never had anything to do with 911, had to be found by the cops later. And this was a major point for the defense of, listen, generally speaking, the good person calls 911. The person who is seeking help wants cops around, wants the authorities here to protect them. They call 911. Right. The person who doesn't. And so I go, okay, she stabs him in the back one time.
Leaves the knife in, because I believe he pulled the knife out of himself.
Yeah, and then goes and gets his gun.
Right. And by the way, folks, if you don't already know this, as a matter of first aid, don't ever pull out a knife.
Yeah.
Leave it in.
Leave it there because...
I don't know if you're familiar, but when Martin Luther King was stabbed in the chest in like 1955 or 56, and they said had he sneezed, it would have hit his aorta, and had he attempted to remove the knife, it would have hit his aorta. And when he took him to the emergency room, he saw a knife in his chest with a sheet over it, and that's why he survived. And
I didn't know that. Yeah. I learned something today.
A lot of people, and it left a scar in the exact form of a crucifix too, by the way. But if you ever, not just knives, I mean, if you get in an industrial accident and there's a pipe going through your abdomen, don't remove it. Get to the emergency room with it intact. So we probably didn't want me to come in and chat about that, but it just
I think it's an important bit, and listen, could she have potentially argued why she did that and the fear that she felt for her boyfriend?
And there was disparity of force that she could have used to argue her case.
Right.
I mean, the guy was bigger, had the guy down.
Right.
What's going to happen next? I don't want to wait to find out. So, I mean, she had
and I couldn't step in with just my hands because he's bigger than me, he's stronger than me. So I had the only thing I had was a pocket knife in my pocket, so I used it.
That's right.
I do, again, love having something between a harsh word and a gun or a knife, right? This is why I say this all the time, and I know some people are like, gosh, John, we hear it enough. You like your palm. And I get it. My point is not to sell their product. Like, I like his product, but that's not my point. My point is,
it's a damn good option.
It's a good option because, again, it solves the problem. Okay, yeah, maybe we get a little bit around and we all have to sit here until we get off of the subway. Maybe. Palm doesn't aerosolize like that very badly, so that's good. Now, if you're carrying one that's like a big cone or a fog or a mist, well, everybody gets a taste.
It's gonna be a party now. Yeah.
Now it's a party.
Yeah.
But then we don't have the worries because if I OC somebody and I'm wrong, really the worst I'm looking at is an assault charge.
It could be ag assault, but generally assault.
Generally an assault charge. You know what I mean? Like, well, I didn't injure anybody, right? So there were no permanent injuries. It just hurts. So probably the worst you're looking at is assault charges. Whereas if I'm wrong and I knife somebody, I'm certainly looking at ag assault charges, and now I'm in real trouble. Because ag assault, felony everywhere, and you're talking, 20 years.
Presumptive prison term in Arizona with no priors is 7.5.
7.5. You don't want to spend 7.5 in prison either. Again, they're presumptive on an assault charge. There's no jail time. Especially you got no priors and those things. You're going to get probation. You're going to get told, don't do that again, and you get to check in with a probation officer for a while.
Well, some anger management classes. So that'll fix it.
Sure. Yeah. So my point is something in the midst there.
Right.
And the other side of that, hey, man, somebody gets crazy with you, my bad, dude. You're right. Whatever. Heck me.
I always tell people my first option is to apologize. No matter how big of a jerk the other guy was, I'm going to apologize. I am fat. My wife's being a complete jerk. Can I please pay for your dinner?
Yeah.
Because that'll be the best $40 I ever spent my whole life.
Whole
And then
bunch cheaper.
if that doesn't work, then my second option, if it's possible, and it's usually possible, is the Nike defense.
Run food, but couldn't run in this
And
case.
if there's no way to run here. So at some point you get to where, okay, my options are becoming more and more limited, but I want you to be able to tell a jury why option 1 wouldn't work or couldn't work or didn't work, why option 2 wouldn't or couldn't or didn't, and why that only left you with option 3 and option 4. And God, I wish I'd had other options, but I couldn't think of any at the time.
Yeah. And I tried all those other options and they just wouldn't work. And so I couldn't get away from this guy or whatever.
It always gets back to what we say, it's your last option. So make sure it's not your first and only. You know?
Yeah, and to me it was interesting because the other part of that is, okay, she stuck it in his back and left it. Maybe it got stuck on his, one of his vertebrae or something. I'm not sure, but like, okay, so if she purposefully just left it there, well, now I left my tool, the one thing I had to protect myself in the guy.
If you're really in fear for your life, why didn't you stab him multiple times until he got off the guy?
Yeah, why didn't you get him 5 or 6 times until he got off? And so...
Because she did nothing to stop the assault, really.
No.
I mean, he finished what he was doing and then got up and pulled the knife out and then walked around and caused more mayhem and went and got a gun.
Well, and that's... we see that with people who get stabbed all the time. They don't know they're stabbed.
Yeah.
They think somebody punched them. They feel like, oh, she punched me. Then they realize, oh, what's that? A knife? Oh,
they suddenly
geez,
get woozy because their blood pressure's dropping.
Yeah, that stuff. So, again, be smart, right? Don't let this stuff go sideways on you. And this woman, as far as I know, still in the wind.
Did you notice the girl? I think the girl that was showing the video, that was running, that took the video.
Yeah.
It was just blood curdling at the end because she was just screaming, "Let me off!
Yeah.
Let me off!" And I was like, "Oh my God!" I felt for that woman so much.
So much.
Can you imagine being in that situation? Everybody was crowded down this end of the subway, and there's literally a gunfight, a knife fight going on down here, and they had no way to get away from it. It's scary.
That's scary stuff. A great reason to carry your tools too, because the fight might come your way and you can't get away from it. And in that case, better than, oh my God, let me off, is, dude, you better stay away from me because I've got teeth and I don't want to use them. So crazy one, Tim.
New York City. New York City.
Appreciate the knowledge, my friend.
Always, buddy. Thanks for having me.